This episode of the Ageless and Awesome podcast is sponsored by the Radiant Reset Hormone Detox Guide for Perimenopausal Women. As a woman in the modern world, our hormones are taking a battering. They're impacted by the food we eat, the toxins we're exposed to, such as when we eat out of plastic takeaway containers, or even worse, reheat food in them. Please don't do this. If you're handling FPOS receipts, filling the car with fuel, eating non-organic produce that hasn't been washed effectively, plus so much more things add to our toxic load every day. Even though our bodies are designed to effectively manage toxins, they haven't evolved as quickly as our toxic world has, unfortunately. So our body does need support. Symptoms such as stubborn weight gain, fatigue, disrupted periods, irritability, and gut health issues can be a sign that you'd benefit from a gentle detox. And that's why I developed the Radiant Reset Hormone Detox Guide for Perimenopausal Women. This free guide has an abundance of information to get you started on your very own DIY detox. And if you'd like to upgrade to VIP, it's only $47 for a limited time. I used to sell this program for $247. The upgrade gives you the recipes, including plenty of plant-based options, the meal planner, the shopping list template, the video workshop, and so much more. Click the link in the show notes to learn more now. Take care of your hormones. They are a critical part of your health as a woman. Hi, I'm Susie Garden, and this is the Ageless and Awesome podcast. I'm an age-defying naturopath and clinical nutritionist, and I'm here to bust myths around women's health and aging so that you can be ageless and awesome in your 40s, 50s, and beyond. The Ageless and Awesome podcast is dedicated to helping women through perimenopause and menopause with great health, a positive mindset, and outrageous confidence. Hit subscribe or follow now, and let's get started. Hello, gorgeous one, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ageless and Awesome podcast. Now, this week, I'm actually going to share some of my personal information. I actually had a different plan for today's episode, but I had a bit of a diagnosis this morning, and I just thought I would share it with you because I think it's really relevant for the cohort of women that listen to this podcast. So I am over 50, and I am post-menopause now, and I have no history of osteoporosis in my family. But I decided, because I'm a healthcare professional and because I'm just so curious and so interested in health and information, that I wanted this information about my body. So I elected to have a bone scan. And really what I wanted was just to have a baseline so that if there are any changes in the future, I know where I was at sort of when I hit menopause. So I had a chat to my GP. She was more than happy. And in fact, she highly recommended doing it. And it's not super expensive either. Like with the Medicare rebate in Australia, it cost me about $130, which I was actually surprised. I was expecting it to be triple that price. So $130. So I went off on Friday, and I'll tell you a little bit about the examination itself, because basically, at the end of this podcast, I'm going to say, if you are kind of in your late 40s, early 50s, if you are perimenopause or postmenopause, please go and get a bone scan. If it's within your budget to do it, I think it's highly, highly recommended to do it, but we'll get there. So I went there on Friday. Super easy test. I didn't even have to get undressed. Normally I wear jeans. I chose not to for whatever reason on Friday, and so there was no metal in what I was wearing except for my bra because I have underwire, so I just had to take that off. But I was allowed to keep all my jewelry on, which was super easy. And then it was literally just lying on a table, and they take some pictures very similar to X-ray. And that was it. It took I reckon maybe 5 to 7 minutes to get the test done, which was awesome. So it's a super simple test, and there was no preparation required for it either. So I had that done Friday morning, and I had a message from my doctor on Friday afternoon that she wanted to chat to me today. And I'm recording this Monday, and I had a telehealth with her this morning, and she said to me that so they take the scan in two places, one hip and your lower back, because I'm assuming that's where you must start to see changes in bone from those two areas. So my hip had no changes, but my lower back has showed that I have osteopenia. So now that I have been diagnosed with osteopenia, it means that I've now become at moderate risk of developing osteoporosis. And I've got to tell you, I was floored by that, because I have a really good diet, as you could expect. I mean, sure, I have a few treats here and there, but generally speaking, I got a pretty good diet. I have a personalized nutrition plan. I have my own GLOW protocol. And I do resistance training. Now, I have been a bit slack with that, I have to admit, since the beginning of the year, because I've been really obsessed with Reformer. But yeah, I'm pretty active. I'm not carrying any excess weight. I don't have any of the risk factors. So let's talk about what this means. So osteopenia is essentially, if you look at the medical definition, it's a loss of bone density. So when they've done the scan, they can see that the bone density in my lower back is less than it should be for someone my age, I guess. And it means that my bones don't have as much mineral content as they should. And this can make them weaker and increase my risk of a bone fracture. And the thing that can happen in spines that I've certainly seen as a nurse is that you can get vertebra fractures, even just from if you have osteoporosis, even just from lifting something, just having that pressure on the spine, on the bones in your spine, lifting something heavy can contribute to breaking them. Or having a fall that normally wouldn't be a big deal, you could actually get a spinal fracture if you have osteoporosis. And having osteopenia puts me in that risk category. If it progresses to osteoporosis. So the recommendation, actually, before I get into that, what's the difference between osteopenia and osteoporosis, I guess? Osteopenia is an early sign of osteoporosis. And so, as I said, now that I've been diagnosed with osteopenia, I have an increased risk of osteoporosis and an increased risk of fracture. So it is a pretty significant diagnosis, because these things are asymptomatic. So osteopenia is asymptomatic. Osteoporosis is also asymptomatic until you start getting fractures. And once you're at that point, there's really not a lot you can do from a prevention point of view. That's when you're going on medications and things to help stabilize your bones. So it's really important, now that I'm armed with this information, it's important that I act. And the thing is, what is really troubling is osteopenia is really common. So around a third of adults, this is American data, around a third of adults older than 50 have a degree of bone density loss. So it's pretty common. And the risk factors, and this is why I wanted to talk about it today, most of the people that listen to this podcast. So if you're an adult older than 50, that's a risk factor. If you were assigned female at birth, that is a risk factor. In fact, people that were assigned female at birth are 4 times more likely to have osteopenia than people assigned male at birth. So it's a huge difference in risk. People who are postmenopausal, so that's 2 risk factors I have. The fact that I'm female, assigned female at birth, and I'm postmenopause. I don't smoke. I don't drink more than 2 alcoholic drinks a day. Those are 2 other risk factors. Also, I have no family history of it. Other sort of medical conditions. I have no medical conditions, but other medical conditions that can lower your bone density are things like hyperthyroidism. So that's the thyroid condition where you lose weight super quickly. Diabetes, chronic kidney disease, calcium or vitamin D deficiency. That's the other thing. I have really good vitamin D. Hormonal imbalances like Cushing's syndrome. If you don't know what it is, then it probably doesn't apply to you. If you've had an eating disorder in the past, particularly anorexia. If you have an autoimmune disease, a lot of the autoimmune diseases do affect your bones, like rheumatoid arthritis, for example. There are medications that can increase your osteopenia risk, with like diuretics. That's a very common blood pressure medication. Corticosteroids, if you're on medications used to treat seizures. Hormone therapy for cancer, anticoagulants, and proton pump inhibitors. So they're often shortened to PPIs. They treat acid reflux. So they're not like an antacid as such. I wonder if the antacids would also, since they do a similar thing, which is reduce acid. And we do know from clinical trials that long-term use of PPIs can increase people's risk of osteoporosis because it reduces the stomach acid, and therefore your ability to break down calcium from your food is a little bit inhibited. So what does this mean? So I guess the main thing is the increased risk of fracture. And you might think, oh, big deal, I've had a broken arm, it heals, right? Well, not necessarily. I have someone I actually did nursing with. She's been sharing online her journey. She has an autoimmune condition, but she also recently fell off a stepladder, like the tiniest fall. And she broke, I think, both of the bones in her lower leg. It basically shattered the tibia, and she required what we call external fixation. So it's like when you see people that have all that metal on the outside of their leg, generally. You can see it in other parts of the body too, but it's used to help heal fractures, so complicated fractures. So she'd had a number of surgeries, the external fixation to try and put it together. She had that on for a couple of months, and the bone was not healing. And so she's now several months down the track. She's still not got full use of her leg back. And this was a really tiny fall from a very low height. And she's the same age as me. The only extra risk factor, she's got the autoimmune condition. So I assume she's possibly had corticosteroid treatment over the years. She probably has a couple of other risk factors as well, but still, like, that is the thing, is that if you have this higher risk of fracture, then it can be very complicated. A very simple fracture, rather, can be very complicated to heal. The other thing I know from many years of nursing is that as you get older, and if you do happen to, in inverted commas, have a fall, you are more likely to get a fracture. And if you get a significant fracture like a broken hip, it does increase your risk of death, unfortunately. Often I looked after a lot. I did work, I think, for a year in an orthopedic ward, and I saw a lot of people, particularly women, that had terrible fractures from falls, and then they'd get urinary tract infections, and they'd be bedridden for quite some time. I mean, the treatment's a little different now, but still, it's something certainly that I don't want, and I don't want it for you either. So some of the things that I am now going to do, now that I have this information, and that is the beauty of having this information, is it gives you the opportunity to course correct. If I just kept doing what I'm currently doing, which on paper looks pretty good, then this could potentially progress to osteoporosis. That could mean lifelong medication. It could mean I have some significant mobility issues because I may fracture. I may not be able to do the things I like doing, like riding my bike, that sort of stuff. So let's talk about now, what am I going to do? What is my management plan? So let's talk I'll talk diet and I'll talk lifestyle. But let's start with lifestyle. So definitely movement is super important, and weight-bearing exercises are the best ones for strengthening your bones, and plus all of the connective tissues such as your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments that really help with your mobility. So things like walking, brisk walking, yoga, which you all know I love. I haven't been doing as much of it as I have been doing reformer, so I need to kind of get a bit more balance there. Pilates, definitely, and resistance training. I need to get back into that, which I've been wanting to do. I've just been a little bit too cozy in winter and not wanting to get up early and do it. So yeah, this has been a very motivating kind of diagnosis to get my act together when it comes to getting into the gym and improving my bone health through resistance training.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
How would you like to have increased energy, balanced hormones, glowing skin, and your ideal weight in just 3 months? Sounds awesome, right? Imagine having your very own hormone balancing and weight loss strategy totally personalized to you based on your body biochemistry to release excess weight, say goodbye to pesky perimenopause symptoms, and decrease inflammation in your body, which of course leads to decreased inflammaging. That's right, ladies, there are age-defying benefits as well. Oh, and of course, you have me at your fingertips for expert support so you never feel stuck or confused. I love supporting women on their weight loss journeys, and I've packaged up the award-winning Metabolic Balance Program with my signature hormone management system, giving you the Glow Protocol. This 12-week one-to-one coaching program is you and me, nailing down your health and weight loss goals, creating your personalized plan using your blood tests, a thorough health assessment, and your food preferences. And then we get started with me supporting you every step of the way. Even if you've tried everything, even if you have resistant weight and complex medical conditions, the power of personalized nutrition, mindset coaching, and my support is transformational and gets results. And I'm not even exaggerating, even if I do say myself. So if you're ready to embrace feeling like your younger self again, lose excess weight, manage health conditions, and regain your confidence, you can just DM me at Susie Garden Wellness or email me hello@susiegarden.com, and I'll pop a link in the show notes. As well, even though I do take a vitamin D supplement, and my vitamin D, I got my vitamin D tested recently, I think it was around 98, which is excellent. My GP, actually, even before this osteopenia diagnosis, said, I want your vitamin D up over 100. And I'm thinking, it's 98. Surely that's near enough. But she was like adamant, I get it over 100. So, even though I do take vitamin D, I'm going to double that dose for a short period of time just to get a bit of a boost. And I'm also going to plan a little bit more sunshine time. I always recommend to my clients, when you're wanting to expose your skin for purposes of getting vitamin D, there's a few things. Obviously, no sunscreen, because that's going to block the UV, which we're trying to achieve. So no sunscreen. And I live in Queensland, which has really intense sun in summer. So at the moment, it's not so bad at midday. I can go out. I've been walking my little dog at lunchtime, so I'm making sure I have my arms exposed and I don't have sunscreen on them. Although, to be honest, I do prefer to expose skin that doesn't normally get exposed. So the skin of my back, the skin of my tummy, that's what I'm going to be concentrating now, because I'm going to be putting in a bit more concerted effort to get a good 10 to 20 minutes a day of sunshine on my skin. And I don't want it to shine on skin that already has had thousands of hours of exposure, that has a lot of the wear and tear that you get with the sun exposure. So I'm going to use some of my other skin. So upper thigh is a good one, tummy, back, that kind of thing. You would probably have your own areas of your skin that doesn't see a lot of sunlight. That's what I recommend, so that you're not going to then potentially increase your risk of skin cancer. And that is something that's in my family. So yeah, you might notice I said vitamin D. I did not say calcium. Now, the thing is with calcium supplements, there is kind of some controversy around them. We can only absorb roughly 600 milligrams of calcium at a time. So if you're taking a really high dose calcium supplement, it's a bit of a waste. If you're going to take one, don't take more than 600 milligrams at a time. You could probably split that dose and have it twice a day. Obviously, you need to take the advice that you've been given by your medical professional. What the advice or the information that I'm providing today is not personalized to you. It might be completely irrelevant to you if you have other things going on in your body. So please know that what I'm talking about today is for someone like myself. This is my plan, okay? If you've been told to take calcium, then that's between you, your healthcare provider, and maybe you want to do a little bit of reading and see if that is the right option for you. I am, of course, being a nutritionist, going to be looking to diet for my calcium, because the body knows what to do with the calcium in food. And so let's talk about the food sort of aspect of these. Now, most people, when they think of calcium, of course, the first thing they're going to think of is dairy. And I am going to have some dairy in my list. But interestingly, seeds, seeds are tiny little nutritional powerhouses. And many of them are actually rich in calcium, including poppy seeds, sesame seeds, celery seeds, and chia seeds. So I already have a tablespoon of chia seeds a day, because I put that in my smoothie. If I'm having a smoothie, if I'm having oats, I put it in my oats and I soak it overnight. So I've got that covered. I also have sunflower seeds. I have LSA, which is linseed or flax seeds, same thing. Oops, there's my phone. I'm just going to turn that off. So yeah, linseeds, sunflower seeds, and almonds. I have that in my smoothie. If I have a smoothie, which I do on most days. So I'm getting those extra seeds and also almonds, which I'm going to talk about separately. And the good thing with seeds, it's not just calcium, it's zinc, it's magnesium, it's protein, it's healthy fats. Like, for example, chia, very good source of omega-3 fatty acids, and there's not too many plant foods that are. And what was the other thing I was going to say about the seeds? It'll come back to me, but yeah, omega-3, healthy fats, I guess. Yeah, really, really important. And we know, even though they're high in calories, and this is, again, another way I'm going to combat the calories in, calories out argument, is that people that eat a lot of seeds and nuts, actually, even though they're high in calorie, they don't put on weight. They don't. And it's because seeds are just, I think they probably take a little bit more energy to break down, but also it's one of these little quandaries that kind of break down that calories in, calories out theory, as it were. So what else am I going to be including? Well, cheese is a great source of calcium as well as protein. I do actually really like cheese. Harder cheese, like Parmesan cheese, has the most calcium. Softer cheeses tend to have less calcium. And so, yeah, I already sort of have cheese, not every day, but I do have it on some days. So I may increase that. I'm just going to have a think about that, because I do have, a reasonable amount, I think. Yogurt, I love love, love, love. And of course, it's a great source of probiotics. So, yep, I do love yogurt. Again, it's not something I have every day, but I'm going to reconsider, maybe pop a bit in my smoothie or something like that just to get more of that in. Things like sardines and canned salmon are high in calcium. I don't know that I can stomach sardines. I've had them when I went trekking in Nepal, and when you're desperate because you're starving all of the time when you're trekking at high altitude, I remember eating them and really liking them. So I'm going to experiment perhaps a little bit with that. The thing is with the canned fish is that you've got to get the BPA-free lining, which is possible to get. I might have to hunt around a little bit for that, but you can definitely get it. And then the other thing you've got to think about, particularly with salmon, is the heavy metals. Now, sardines are actually pretty good because they're a small fish, so they don't tend to absorb as many of the heavy metals. But the canned salmon, they tend to have some mercury in them. However, salmon actually has high levels of selenium in it, as does sardines, and that's a mineral that can prevent and reverse mercury toxicity. So, yeah, that's something, again, to think about. Beans and lentils. So I love beans and lentils. Some of you may know that I was a vegetarian for like 10 plus years, and I'm probably still around 90% vegetarian. So beans and lentils are like my jam. I love it. They're high in many minerals, including calcium. They're a great iron source, zinc, folate, magnesium, potassium, and things like white beans, so cannellini beans, butter beans are also very good sources of calcium. So I actually had white beans for lunch today, starting my new routine of making sure I'm really including a lot of calcium-rich foods. So almonds, I said I'd talk about separately, and of all of the nuts, almonds are the highest in calcium. So I love them. The great thing about nuts is they contain so many other minerals and also fiber, which is great for your gut health. And, nuts may help you lower blood pressure, which is also a really good thing. Not that I have an issue with blood pressure, but it's always something on my mind. My mum has high blood pressure, so that could be something in my future. So I like to just keep on that prevention bandwagon. So almonds, I do eat a fair few of those. Leafy greens, especially kale. Now, I've been kind of lazy with my kale, so I'm going to get back into that. I used to have kale a lot, and I've kind of been leaning more towards things like silver beet and spinach because they're just a bit easier to work with. I mean, let's face it, kale can be pretty hardcore. But I definitely, now that I know that I need more calcium, I'm going to be bringing back kale in a big way. And kale's great. You can, again, put it in a smoothie. Just don't put the stalks in. Just strip the leaves off. You can juice the stalks, so that can be handy if you like to juice. But yeah, sauteing kale is fantastic with a bit of garlic, bit of chili, really nice. If you're going to use kale in a salad, you can just make sure you massage it. So if I'm using kale in a salad, I'll pop it in a bowl, again, without the stalks, and I'll put in some lemon juice and some olive oil and some salt, and I'll just rub that kale, massaging it, and you'll notice that it will really decrease in size and it gets really shiny and glossy, and it's really delicious and soft and buttery when you do that to it. So yeah, that's the greens. Rhubarb is another food that's pretty high in calcium. I'm not a massive fan. Except if it's in more of like a sweet pie or a pastry or something. So that's probably not something I'm going to have a lot more of. Things like amaranth. Amaranth is I guess I would call it a grain. It's like an ancient grain. It's pretty high in calcium, and it's quite nice. Edamame and tofu is also very high in calcium. A lot of people may not know that. And I quite like tofu, so that's something I'm definitely bringing back in on regularly on the schedule. Dried figs are also quite high in calcium, are actually higher than other dried fruits. They're also rich in antioxidants and in fiber, so that's something really important. But also it has a good amount of potassium and vitamin K. And these are two micronutrients that are essential for bone health. In fact, if you've got a good quality calcium supplement, it should have vitamin D and K2 in it. If you don't have that, then I would highly recommend, that is something I am going to do, is get a vitamin D supplement that has K2 in it to help with actually allowing the bones to lay down that calcium. Milk, of course. A lot of people can't tolerate milk. I'm not a massive fan of milk. I would always recommend, if you're going to have milk, to have the full fat. Absolutely, full fat. No, that's a no-brainer. Please don't have light milk. It's really not doing you any favors. Go the full fat. I wouldn't go huge amounts. I think that, when we look at countries like Japan, for example, now that they're having more dairy products, their rates of osteoporosis have actually increased, which is really interesting. They traditionally have had a very, very low rate of osteoporosis, and they've have a lot of tofu. They have a lot of soy products. So, and we know that soy is very high in calcium. So milk, if you drink it, if you tolerate it, then sure, but I wouldn't be going overboard on it because it can block some other mineral absorption. And as I said, many people get bloating, they get mucus, they may not associate their symptoms with intolerance. And the majority of adults actually don't make lactase, which is the enzyme that breaks down milk. I won't get too much on my bandwagon about milk, but yeah, that is something that I can't talk about calcium-rich foods without mentioning it. So I think that's probably all I wanted to talk about. I guess the main take-home messages are, if you're in menopause, particularly if you've gone into early menopause, then that is a really good reason to get a bone scan. If you haven't already had one, you will in Australia need to get a referral, and I did get some of mine covered by Medicare, even though I had no risk factors. So, or except for being over 50. So yeah, that's something I highly recommend. So you've got that baseline. For that price, I paid $130. That is dirt cheap compared to a hospital stay, because I have a fracture when I'm in my 60s that may put me out of action for months. So yeah, I feel like if you've got information, you're armed with that, then you can take steps to prevent illness in the future. And that is what being a wellness practitioner is all about. So get information, find out what your bones are looking like, get your vitamin D tested as well. If your doctor can't do it under Medicare, you can get private pathology and get it tested. Highly, highly recommend it. Also, if you are postmenopausal, you probably will do well with a vitamin D supplement anyway. Get some calcium-rich foods into your body. Get some good movement, yoga, reformer Pilates, any weight-bearing exercises like walking, lifting heavy weights, all of those sorts of things will help. But you've also got to make sure, actually I will add on to this, if you're wanting to get more calcium out of your diet, your body needs to be able to absorb it, okay? Which means your gut health has to be sorted out. So if your gut health is not great, if you have regular bloating, if you have poor stool form, so lots of diarrhea or constipation, if you have pain, if you have reflux, if you're taking long-term proton pump inhibitors or antacids, things like that, all of those things could be impacting your ability to absorb calcium. Also, if you have a lot of stress in your life, a lot of stress will slow down your gut function, will mean you're perhaps not absorbing as well as you should be, and therefore you may consider doing some stress management. It's pretty easy. I've got loads of resources on my website, susiegarden.com. to help you. And there's so many free apps, free YouTubes, all of those sorts of things that will help. So I hope if you're thinking, oh, is this me? Should I go and get this test done? Just get it done. And yeah, if you've got any further questions, do let me know. I would be very happy to answer them. So have a great week. I'll be back on Thursday with Q&A. And yeah, I'll see you then. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Ageless and Awesome podcast. If you liked today's episode, please make sure you click the little plus button if you're on Apple Podcasts or the follow button if you're on Spotify so that you get each new episode delivered to you every week. If you like free stuff, then head to the show notes and click the link to receive my free Radiant Reset Hormone Detox Guide for perimenopausal women. Or if you'd like to continue the discussion, head over to Instagram and DM me at Susie Garden Wellness. I'd love to connect with you.